Okay, let's do it. Let's do the first wrap up of the year. Oh. So, in January, I read 8 books, right? Yeah, 2, 4, 6, 8. Yep, 8 books that I finished. And then I have a big stack of books that I am kinda in the middle of. And I also have many books that I DNF. So let's get to discussing them. But before we do that, hey, hello, how are you? Welcome back or welcome to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Zsuzsi, I am the petite reader and I make weekly bookish videos. And if this is something that sounds good to you and you like any of my other videos, then I think that you should definitely subscribe to my channel. You are welcome here. Okay, so first the DNFs. I am getting better at it, and this month I reached a personal record because I DNF'd 4 books. 4 books. The first being Spare by Prince Harry. Now look, I was genuinely interested in this book and I managed to watch about 50% of the Netflix documentary Meghan and Harry before it got just too much for me. But I was interested in reading this book. And this book has 3 parts. The first one discusses Prince Harry's childhood, and then the second part is his military service and more like his adult life but without Meghan, and then the third part is about his relationship with Meghan and how they had a difficult time belonging to the royal family, and then the break that occurred between them and the royal family. So I managed to read the first part of this book, and I think I struggled with this book because I don't really understand the purpose of this book. I feel that it is not something that he really explained to us. But mostly I struggled with this book because I feel that Prince Harry and the royals, you know, they are incredibly privileged people. I think that they are as privileged as it can get. And I think that there is only a very limited number of people who can truly understand them when they speak about their experiences, because whatever is hard for them and whatever seems like an injustice to him and a complaint to him, it's not necessarily a difficulty for other people. And at the end of the day, he is an incredibly privileged white, straight, English-speaking man, you know? And again, it is as privileged as somebody can get. I just couldn't connect to his story. There were personal stories in that book, mostly the ones that were linked to Princess Diana, that obviously broke my heart. It really broke my heart. But I think that this book, I'm not sure what was the purpose of this book. I didn't appreciate that he was telling stories about his family, about his brother, and about his father, who will never be able to speak for themselves. That's one. And also I didn't feel that their stories are Harry's story and Harry's place to share. So I didn't like that. And this is a long ass book. It's like 500 pages, maybe 400 maybe, I'm sorry, I don't know exactly, but 500 pages long, and I was like, I'm sorry, but I cannot chew myself through this. It is clear that he, or maybe I should say they, suffered and struggled, and I wish them happiness, and I hope that they will find their peace and they can move on with their lives. But I don't think that I will ever pick up this book again, and I don't think that I will finish the documentary. I don't think that. Okay, the second book that I DNF'd this month was Hidden Potential by Adam Grant. I didn't read much of this book, to be honest with you, maybe just the first couple of chapters, and I couldn't connect with this book. I didn't find it interesting at all. So I decided not to struggle with it. I DNF'd it. I don't think that I will pick it up again. The third book that I DNF'd this month was Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree. I believe that's his name. And look, nobody is more surprised than I am because this book is a booktube darling. And so many people love this book. So many people enjoy this book. And I didn't. I read about 80 pages in this book. And considering that this book is not long, I think like, you know, this is a significant chunk. And when people said that this is a cozy fantasy about an orc who is like building a coffee shop and serving coffee and baking pastries, that's what they meant. That's what this book is about, brewing coffee and baking pastries. And I just like, no, I unfortunately couldn't connect with this book. I didn't find it interesting. I actually found it really boring. So I don't understand the hype. I feel like I am missing out on something by not liking this book. But I just couldn't. So I don't think that I will pick this book up again, but I am so happy that so many other people loved it. So good on you guys. And then the fourth book that I DNF this month, but this is just a soft DNF. This is a book that I am going to pick up again. It is The September House by Carissa Orlando, I think. Yeah. And there was nothing wrong with this book. I love the writing style. I also love that the character is like an elderly female character. And even the story was interesting to me. Just at the time when I decided to read this book, I didn't crave thriller, I didn't crave horror, I just picked it up because of the hype. And it seems legit. I mean, the hype, that seems legit, and I am going to come back to this book next time when I am craving, you know, a little bit of a darker story or when I want something paranormal, because I think that this book is worth a read and I am genuinely interested in it. So it is just a temporary DNF, a temporary situation. Okay, next, the big pile of books that I just didn't get the chance to finish this month. So these are the books that I am rolling over to February, and I have 5 books here. I have 2 non-fictions, Brief Answers to the Big Questions by Stephen Hawking. I am really liking this book. I am about 50% in, and this book is exactly about what the title suggests. Stephen Hawking answering big questions. Yeah, I will review it in February when I finished it and I actually know what the book is about. The next one is Inner Engineering by Sadhguru. I think I say that correctly. The next book that I didn't get to finish is Fierce Fairy Tales by Nikita Gill. This is a poetry collection, a darker style feminist poetry collection, and the retelling of fairy tales in a feminist fashion. I am loving it. I am about 50% in and I am enjoying it. Next, A Dreadful Splendor by B.R. Myers. I am about 40% in this book and I am really liking it. This is a Victorian era, I was going to say romance, but it's not. It's a paranormal investigation / romance, and honestly, I like it. So far, I am really liking it. And then last but not least, of course, I am reading the newest Sarah J. Maas release, of course, but I am only on like chapter 22 or something as I am filming this. So we have still a lot to go because this book, true Sarah J. Maas fashion, is like 100 chapters long and almost 1,000 pages long. So yeah, I will review this also in my February wrap-up. But spoiler alert, I don't really like it that much so far. But there are like at least 80 more chapters to go, 800 more pages to go. So fingers crossed, it will actually, like, you know, pick up a little bit and it will turn out to be a good book. Okay, now let's get to discussing the books that I actually finished. First, what I need to mention is The Cruel Prince by Holly Black and the Cruel Prince series because, ow, because I finished every single one of the books in the original trilogy. Cruel Prince was the first book that I got to read in 2024 and I love it. I'm freaking obsessed with it. I love this book so much. I am so happy, so happy that this is the first book that I picked up in 2024 and my reading year started in such a positive way. So I am forever grateful to Cruel Prince and Holly Black. It was such a good book. Okay, so I don't think that I really have to describe this book to many of you out there because this book is insanely famous and I feel like just like with the Sarah J. Maas books, like everybody has already read this book. But just in case you haven't, this book is about, well, this book is about so many things, but as far as characters go, this book is about Jude. And Jude was a very young girl when her parents were brutally murdered. Like literally, that's how the book starts. That's the prologue, a chapter out of nowhere. Boom! Just somebody pops up in their backyard, front yard, whatever, and like, daddy is dead, mommy is dead. I was like, okay, Holly Black, you have my attention. You have my attention. I actually filmed a little bit of an instant reaction video to the prologue that I will find and I will insert here for you guys. I was super sick when I filmed this video. I had COVID, so you know, bear that in mind. But yeah, I was like, what the hell is happening? I just finished the prologue in this book and I'm sorry, but what's happening? What the hell is happening? I did not expect this. Like, this book starts with a murder. And now that I read the prologue, I'm like, oh wow, okay, like I'm here, I'm listening, and we can continue the story. Oh, whoa, this is not what I expected. So I just wanted to pop in and let you guys know that, what the hell? Okay, Holly Black, you have my attention after this prologue, so let's continue. Yeah. Yeah, so after the murder of her parents, Jude and her sister, she has two sisters, they are all whisked away to fairy, which is, you guessed, is a fairy realm, and they grow up there. But they are not immortals, right? They are humans, and they actually really struggle to survive there. It's not exactly an easy life for them. The High King of Fairy is about to retire, to step down, because he had enough. He's like, I've had enough of you crazy fairies and trolls and pixies, whatever, ruling all over you. You cause me a headache, so goodbye. You know what? I have 6 sons. One of them can rule you. And one of those 6 sons, the youngest of the sons, is Carden. And that prince is cruel. Cruel, cruel, cruel. And the games begin. I loved how the Fae was portrayed in this book, because Holly Black did a really good job portraying them, mythologically speaking, correctly. They are very wicked, they are cruel, they are mean, they are deceptive, they are manipulative, they always want to bargain with you, they don't really like humans, right? They torture each other and they like to torture humans as well. And also, the external character design in this book, for the Fae and for the trolls and for the pixies, but for the Fae specifically, I loved it. I loved it. They were beautiful, but they had like a whole selection of fairies. Blue skin, green skin, with horns, without horns, with wings, no wings, deer legs, whatever you name it. I enjoyed it so much. And yes, Cardan has a tail. Yes, Cardan has a tail. What I loved about this book the most, and I know that this is something that's going to sound weird, but I love that this is not a romance, because this is not a romance book. I don't think that this series is particularly like a YA fantasy romance series. Romance is there, it's the subplot, but it's not, you know, in our face, and it's not something that's driving the characters. And honestly, I love that. This book is all about court intrigues and deception and games, and there is not a single honest relationship in this book. And I don't know what that says about me, but I loved it. I loved the games in this book. And Holy Black, you know what, certain things I did not see coming. Excellent. Excellently done. I'm like, I don't know why I waited this long to read this series. Wow, 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 wow. Okay, now that was the first book. The first book I absolutely adored. The second book, The Wicked King, I didn't like it that much. It was boring. There was no plot and there was no character development. So I don't really know what was the purpose of that book. But then the third book, Queen of Nothing, loved it. Loved it. Back to the games, back to being mean, back to being manipulative. Loved it. Loved it. I know that I just said that this is not a romance series, and it's not. But if you want something that's truly a haters to lovers relationship, pick up this series, because this is haters to lovers. I shouldn't say lovers, but this is haters to less haters. Haters to respect. Well, that doesn't make any sense. Anyways, if you haven't read The Cruel Prince, please pick it up, read it. You are not going to regret it. Oh my god, it's so good. Okay, next. Let's continue with another fantasy, Ruthless Vows by Rebecca Ross, which is the second book in the Letters of Enchantment series. And this is the second book to Divine Rivals, right? And this book was one of my most anticipated releases for like 2023, because it got published on Boxing Day, right? But I only read it in 2024. And I am so sad to say that despite Divine Rivals being on my best books list for 2023, unfortunately, the second book, this didn't really work for me. If I had to describe this book in 2 words, I think it would be missed potential. That's how I would describe this book, because this book felt just so flat and so boring to me. And I was so excited when this whole book started, because it seemed like that we were going to get a lot of the fantasy elements, the fantasy world, and we would get to know the gods, you know, and the other side of the story. And we didn't. Like, Rebecca Ross built a fantasy world and she didn't use the elements in that fantasy world. And it was such a disappointment to me. And also the ending felt very anticlimactic. There was one moment when I was like, oh my god, Rebecca, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? But that's all. And yeah, ultimately I am disappointed, because I wanted this to be a fantasy book, and it wasn't. And I know that it's hard because Divine Rivals was such an amazing book. It is hard to publish another book in that series after the publication of that book, because that book is just perfect in every way, and unfortunately, like, this book is not able to keep up with the first one. Of course, I don't have to say that the writing in this book is beautiful, and just like with Divine Rivals, I dog-eared many pages, and there are so many beautiful quotes in this book, but unfortunately it was not able to me to live up to the expectations. I actually filmed a reading vlog for a couple of new release fantasy romance books, and this book will be featured in that reading vlog that I am going to upload after this wrap-up video. So if you want to know more of my thoughts about this book and my feelings and, you know, everything that happens here, then keep an eye out for that vlog, because it's definitely coming. Next is actually so exciting, because I picked up my first graphic novel ever in January. Lore Olympus. This is the first volume by Rachel Smithy. I hope that I am saying her name correctly. And guys, I loved it. I loved it. I love it. So this book was, I believe, or is a web comic, and apparently it's an award-winning graphic novel, and I totally understand why. Now this first volume, and I think that maybe even many of the other volumes, but I'm not sure because I haven't read them yet, they follow the love story of Hades and Persephone, the two Greek gods, but in a contemporary setting, a contemporary world, in a city, basically. And it was so fun. So fun. This book, graphic novel, whatever, kept me so entertained. I love it. It was so funny, and I laughed out loud so many times reading this book. I cannot say too much about the art because I have no talent when it comes to art. I enjoyed it. Like, it makes sense, the colors and the characters and everything that she used. I think it makes perfect sense in the graphic novel, so I liked it, and I cannot wait to read all the other volumes. I know that the newest one comes out in May, and I think I have like 4 or 5 more volumes to read, and I already have the second one somewhere. I am continuing. Now, the way the first one ends, it got really dark. It got really dark. I was very surprised. So obviously there will be darker themes and serious issues to discuss in the upcoming books, but I am looking forward to it. I am freaking obsessed. This is such a good book. Such a good book. Which one should I review next? I was gonna go in the order of reading the books, but I don't think that's how I'm doing it. So anyways, let's just go with the horror. Let's just go with the horror book. This Wretched Valley by Jenny Kiefer. So this is a survival horror book that was inspired by the Dyatlov Pass incident. And I read a non-fiction book about the Dyatlov Pass incident. I think it was The Dead Mountain, and I loved that book. I hated the ending. The ending didn't make any sense, and it was very anticlimactic, but I really loved that book. And up until the end, that book read like a 5-star book, okay? So I was kind of familiar with that incident, and if you are not, that is a hiking accident, like in 1950 something. A group of Russian climbers died under very mysterious circumstances, and the bodies were found in a really gruesome condition, and so many people, like, you know, try to uncover exactly what happened, and there are so many theories out there that are, you know, trying to uncover what happened, but like nobody really fully knows still why they died and why they died like that way. Anyways, and this book was apparently inspired by that incident, and I was super interested in it. This book starts with 3 bodies being discovered in the Kentucky wilderness, and the bodies are not looking good, and they identified the bodies. They know that these bodies belong to 3 hikers who set out to uncover this Kentucky wilderness. But there was a 4th member, a 4th climber, and nobody can find her, and nobody knows what happened to her, and nobody knows like what happened to the bodies and why are these bodies in such a gruesome state. Because for one body they only find like a skeleton, for other bodies, like, you know, they were disemboweled and with their eyes missing and their tongue missing, and like, you know, not fingers and toes missing, like not looking really good. And everybody is trying to understand what happened and trying to find the 4th climber, because the climber's Instagram followers, they saw a very disturbing story that the climber uploaded to Instagram. So they suspect that something is just not okay, but nobody knows. Was it natural? Was it paranormal? Is there something sinister at play? Like, what happened to them? So that's how the book starts. And then we jump back in time. We go back in time with these 4 climbers. A geology student, he discovers this cliffside in Kentucky that apparently nobody knows about. And he really wants to go there and discover the whole place for his thesis. And his thing is not only to write his thesis, but what he wants to do is to go around the world and uncover these untouched parts of the world and then sell it for tourism and, you know, make a lot of money. That's truly his motivation. So he sets out with his research assistant and with Dylan, who is the climber, who is supposed to climb this cliff and document everything on her Instagram, and Dylan's boyfriend and their dog. So it's 4 climbers and a dog, and they set out on this journey. And then certain things happen, they get stranded there, and then they start struggling for survival. Now, overall, I enjoy this book. I expected more of this book, but honestly, I had fun with it. It's a very slow start. First, I felt that it was very boring, and it took me a while to get used to the writing style, because there are multiple point of views in this book, and even within one chapter, like, we jump from one character to another, from one point of view to another, and it took me some time to get used to it. But then I actually started enjoying this book. It is very, very, very gory. Like, the descriptions are there. Okay, so it gets ugly at certain times. I gotta give that to Jenny Kiefer. She knows how to write those scenes, you know? I think my only criticism with this book is that I just didn't feel that it was fleshed out, really. Especially the characters, because every single one of these characters, they are so narcissistic. They are so involved with themselves, and, you know, they all have their own priorities and they cannot really work together. And I wanted more character work in this book, more character development. I think that that's my only criticism, that this book could have benefited from that. But honestly, overall, I enjoyed it, and I recommend this book. And honestly, the cover Can we look at the cover? I think it's a really nice cover. Okay, next. Are you surprised that this is the next book, The Stolen Heir by Holly Black? Are you really surprised? I love The Cruel Prince so much. Of course, I was going to pick up the spin-off series, and I cannot wait for the second book in this duology to come out early March. That book is on my anticipated book releases list. Now, this book is very different from Cruel Prince in many ways. One of them being the characters, because we follow a completely different set of characters 7 or 8 years after the events in The Cruel Prince, and we follow Prince Oak, who was one of my absolutely favorite characters in the original trilogy, and Suren, or Ren. And this book broke my heart. This book made me tear up. This book starts very traumatically, like The Cruel Prince. You read the first chapter, you read the prologue in the first chapter, and you immediately feel for Suren. You immediately want to cry for Suren. And if you don't, then you are just simply not carbon-based. So this book, just like I said, it takes place after The Cruel Prince, when both Oak and Suren are kind of like young adults, and they have to venture to north, where Suren's mother, using magic, dark magic, she's building all these monsters to attack and to take revenge after what happened in the first trilogy. And this book is not like, this is not a romance book, right? I would describe this book as a road trip. And I just want to say that because I see online that people are so disappointed in the Cruel Prince series and also in this book because they don't get romance, because they expect romance, and it's not. And honestly, I don't want these books to be romance books because, again, I keep using the same words, but the court intrigues, the games, the manipulation, the unforeseen plot twists and turns, and that's what these books are about. And I am loving them. And I cannot wait to see what happens in the second book in this duology, because I really liked the ending in the first one. And Suren, and the last book in this wrap-up is Emily Wilde's Map of the Otherlands. And this is, again, a new release that came out in January. This is the second book in the Emily Wilde series. The first one was Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies, and I adored that book. I really did. I adored the characters, and come on. I had to get the second book, and I had to read the second book, like no question there. And this book is also going to be included in my new releases romantasy reading vlog that is coming up. But spoiler alert, I like this book. I really like this book. I mean, if you like the first book, Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies, that you are going to love this second book, because everything is the same. Like, Heather Fawcett delivered in this book as well. The writing is the same. The characters, the characters are cracking me up. I just love them so much. Okay, now quickly, what this book is about. So Emily and Wendell, they are back in Cambridge. They are just living their everyday life, nothing special. Emily, you know, she works hard. Wendell does nothing as usual. And one day, assassins appear at Cambridge University, and they want to assassinate Emily and Wendell. And it turns out that Wendell's mother sent these assassins after Emily. and Vendel. So, if they want to survive, then they gotta pack, they gotta get on the road, and they have to find the door to Vendel's realm to save their lives. And I don't have to say that there are many side characters in this book who helped them, who I adored, and we will get a reappearance from one of my favorite characters on the first book. Yes, people, he is there, he is in this book, and he is still just as adorable as he was in the first book. I love this series and I love this book. I love both of these books because of the character dynamics. The character dynamics between Emily and Vendel, honestly, it is truly there. It is so funny. It is so entertaining. I am having the time of my life. I love that. And I also love that, just like in the first book, in the second book as well, we have darker themes in this book. Like the Fae here is, again, mythologically speaking, are correct and portrayed correctly. They are very wicked and dark, and they would like hurt humans without thinking. And I love that Heather Fawcett publishes these books in the winter, because I think that these are typical wintry books, not only because the books are darker and there are like dark themes in the book, but also the whole vibe and the way this book is written and the scenery. I think it goes very well with winter. And why I adore this book, and I adored the first book as well, I said it after reviewing the first book. I see why this book is boring to some people out there, because it is very slow, it is very meandering, and the writing style, because it's like, you know, it's an encyclopedia technically. We are reading Emily's diary entries. Like, I see how that wouldn't work for some people. Okay, well, this is it, guys. These are all the books that I DNF'd and I finished in January and December, with lots of books coming in February as well. So stay tuned for that. Well, I hope that you enjoyed spending some time with me. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you. Hit share, like, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already done so. Hug that subscribe button. I have a lot of fun and exciting projects coming up. In the meantime, if you want to check out any of my other videos, I will leave them on the screen, probably here and here. And I see you soon in an upcoming video. Bye!